Good Thursday, everybody. Welcome into The Porch. It is a Volquest Baseball podcast that is presented by our friends over at Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP. You got a problem, let them find a solution for you. That's T and Trial Lawyers, where they specialize in criminal defense, family law, and personal injury. So if you have a need, if you've been injured in a car accident, need help with a divorce, help with custody of your children, or have been accused of a crime, Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP is there to help you. You can give them a call for a free consultation to 423-245-4185 or visit them online at SpiveyKingandSpiveyLLP.com. Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP, here are the proud sponsors of The Porch. Tennessee, another big-time SEC series upcoming, another one on the road. Of course, had a 2-1 series win down in Gainesville in the Swamp last weekend. We'll stay on the road. Of course, came back for a midweek thriller a little bit there with the late 3-run home run from Dylan Dreiling, the win over Queens, but now back on the road in SEC play and heading over to Vanderbilt in-state rivalry. Two teams, two programs, two fan bases that do not like each other, and should be a really, really good one. We'll touch base with Luc Lipcius, former Tennessee first baseman, coming up in a matter of about 10 or so minutes. We'll give you the lowdown on Vanderbilt, some of the injury concerns for them. Take a look at the SEC standings and stats for the number one ranked Tennessee Volunteers that are number one in the country, but number two in the SEC East and tied for second in the overall SEC standings. That just goes to show you how crazy this league is. And we'll touch base a little bit on the Florida series right now. I wrote about it last weekend, doubleheader on that Friday, game 1 and game 2, 18 innings. It was a long day. Tennessee got the opener, dropped the nightcap. It was a day that was frustrating for the bottom of the order. The weekend overall was frustrating for the designated hitter, whoever that was. But pitching just continues to carry Tennessee. Tennessee's bullpen has continued to look really good. A.J. Causey and Nate Snead, they were nothing short of elite in Gainesville. And we've seen those two guys do that for a whole lot of their time here at Tennessee this year. Just fantastic. Drew Beam, he wasn't perfect, gave up a couple home runs in his third inning of game 2, but had yet another quality start. Pitched through 6 innings and gave up 3 runs, and that's a quality start. I mean, what more can you ask for? Drew Beam is, again, Mr. Consistency. The top of the order, the top 4 or 5 hitters all weekend long, top 4 on games 1 and 2, and really everybody on game 3, phenomenal. Christian Moore, Blake Berg, Billy Amick at the plate. Dylan Dreiling had such a good weekend, and getting KT back into the fold was huge in game 3, and of course he was back into the fold on Tuesday as well. So frustrating at times towards the end of game 2 of that doubleheader, but overall a good series win for Tennessee. They're 7th in a row, and getting things set for a matchup in Nashville. Tennessee's number 1 in the country. Knew it was gonna be that way after A&M and Arkansas both lost series last weekend, and Kentucky jumps up, and according to the Field of 64 projections per D1 Baseball, Kentucky's actually the top national overall seed right now. Tennessee is number 3, but if you go ahead and win this series against Vanderbilt, I think if Tennessee hasn't already, which some can say they have for sure, but if Tennessee wins this series at Vanderbilt, I think that pretty much locks things up, that Tennessee is the top 8 national seed, which means you would not only host regionals, but you would host supers as well. And the next time you leave, when you return from Hoover, would be to go to Omaha if you're blessed and lucky enough to make it that far. So that's kind of down the line a little bit. But if you look at kind of where Tennessee is right now, look at some of the SEC standings. I mean, we're 6 games remaining in the SEC standings. And Tennessee, of course, is number 2 in the SEC East behind Kentucky, tied for second with Arkansas in the overall standings in the SEC behind Kentucky. But Tennessee offensively leads in pretty much every statistical category. Tennessee's leading the SEC in batting average, slugging percentage, is 3rd in on-base percentage, leads the SEC in runs scored, in hits, in RBI, in doubles, in home runs, is tied for 12th, or actually 12th in triples, but again, that's an obscure stat. Tennessee leads the SEC in total bases. Tennessee's offense, though it was quote-unquote slumping, and there's some validity to that, and Luc Lipcius is going to touch base on that here in a moment. Despite slumping here of late, Tennessee is still leading the SEC in pretty much almost every statistical category, especially the important ones. You look at the pitching for Tennessee and for the SEC, Tennessee has been just phenomenal. Tennessee's second in the SEC in ERA at the 3.82. Tennessee is eighth in the SEC in opponent batting average at 238. Tennessee has struck out a lot of batters, 459 on the season. Tennessee has not allowed a whole lot of home runs, kind of middle of the pack. Tennessee's ERA is second best. Tennessee has allowed only the second fewest earned runs on the season, the second fewest runs overall. Tennessee has walked the fewest batters in the SEC. So, lately here for sure, but, pitching overall has been so good for Tennessee this season. And it's been really interesting, too, because it's not this year more than any other year. It's not just been your traditional 1, 2, 3 starters. And so many times in college baseball, even in this league, you don't have 3 starters. Tennessee's just been so fortunate the last couple of years to have 3 starters in the likes of Dolander and Burns and Beam. They just roll out there, and Tidwell a couple of years ago. And this year you've had to kind of mix and match because of some injuries, and one specific one in A.J. Russell that I get to here in a moment. But Tennessee's utilized the opener on Friday nights. At points in time, Tennessee's utilized Xander Sechrest as an opener, and here lately more so than at the beginning of the season, Xander's kind of gone to go 3 or 4 innings, or sometimes even 5 if he can. And you allow some elite piggyback options in A.J. Causey and Nate Snead. Kirby Cannell has stepped up hugely for Tennessee this year. Aaron Combs has stepped up, well. Dylan Loy's been getting better and better. Still need more. Still need more guys to step up for you for sure, but you're feeling better and better about your pitching the longer the season goes on. So that's going to be huge because, again, if you go down you'll need it in Hoover, and Hoover doesn't necessarily matter, but you're still going to try to win the games, right? But if you go down in regional play, you're going to need that much more pitching. In the College World Series, you need pitching. I mean, again, I'm not breaking any news here, but you'll need a lot of pitching. So Tennessee's pitching continues to get better, and the stats in the Southeastern Conference reflect just that. I do want to hit on A.J. Russell real quick. I'll kind of have this in written form in the War Room coming up later tonight over at Volquest.com. But we are officially on A.J. Russell watch. That's huge. Tennessee's opening day starter, arguably Tennessee's most talented pitcher on the staff. It's been a frustrating year for him. He dazzled in the opening day start against Texas Tech. And then he, was injured there in his second start, came back at the start of SEC play and kind of re-aggravated some things, and we haven't seen him since. And he's been throwing some bullpens. He threw his second official bullpen on Tuesday. And I made mention of this earlier in the week that a guy like A.J. Russell, they can accelerate that timeline, if you will. Like they want him to throw, 2 bullpens, face Tennessee batters in a live session like 2 times, and then bring him back. Well, that's great on paper. But a guy like A.J. Russell, if you see what you want in that first and second bullpen, you can kind of accelerate things a little bit. And I think that's where you are. I don't know if A.J. Russell will be on the active roster at the time of this recording this weekend. My assumption is that he will be, just so Tennessee has that option. That doesn't mean he'll pitch this weekend. In fact, I think in a perfect world, A.J. Russell's not pitching this weekend. But I do think that he's close. Sources, one has told me this weekend that after a second bullpen, appearance, second bullpen work earlier this week on Tuesday, that he was, quote, close, and he's ready to, he's getting close and ready to go. Tony Vitello was on Fox Sports Knoxville earlier this week, and I believe it was The Drive, and they asked him about if they're going to see A.J. Russell this weekend, and Tony said, here's his quote, "There's a possibility. I don't know what the Vegas odds would be, but there is a possibility. Whatever we do integrate him, it's going to be with a specific plan. As of right now, we don't have a specific plan where he's going to start one of those games. I can tell you that. We're not going to require him or ask him to close or finish a game his first time back, so we will see. It's reached a point to where he's throwing off the mound, so it's more about when is the right time and when is he truly prepared. Also, when do we need him? That's kind of the most honest and detailed answer I can give you right now. And that last part I think is important. When do we need him? Again, if you're not in a spot to where you absolutely need A.J. Russell or another arm this weekend, why throw him out there? No pun intended, in my opinion. Could he pitch this weekend? I think he could. But in a perfect world, again, you're going to hold him to it wouldn't shock me if maybe he opened the midweek, pitched an inning or two, or, maybe pitched a little next weekend against South Carolina, or opened. I say open again if you're new to this podcast or haven't really heard the newest baseball slang or term. So many teams, Tennessee included this year, have gone away at points in times from a traditional starter to an opener. You're seeing that with Chris Stamos on Fridays, a little bit with Xanders on Sunday. Wouldn't shock me again if A.J. Russell were to maybe open the midweek game, maybe open that Wednesday game in Hoover. We'll see. Ease him back into things to where when they need a high leverage situation arm, maybe to close a game or in the later innings or in a jam in the 5th or 6th inning, they can call on A.J. Russell, but that won't be his first time back. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's not going to start a game and pitch 7 innings and 110 pitches. That's not going to be his role this year. It's going to be in short stints, but barring a late setback, A.J. Russell's close. And it wouldn't be shocking to see him out there this weekend, but I do think in a perfect world, you won't see him this weekend. And I'll track and see if he's on that opening day roster or on the active roster this weekend. But that's huge. That's good news for Tennessee because, again, what a September call-up he will be for Tennessee down the stretch and Tennessee in postseason play to use in short stints, but to have your opening day starter back. So A.J. Russell watch is activated, and we'll have to see if we see him this weekend. But that's great news for Tennessee and great news for Tony Vitello. All right, one other note that I want to mention before we get into Vanderbilt. Christian Moore, of course, having a fantastic season. Christian Moore is leading Tennessee's career home run tally at 48. He's 3 ahead of Blake Burke at 45, but he's also 3 home runs away from tying the single season record for Tennessee home runs of 24, and that was Sonny Cortez back in 1998. Moore currently sits at 21 right now, so that is worth monitoring over the last 2 series and last 2 weeks of the regular season. Of course, postseason home runs count as well. And, knock on wood here, Moore's gonna break that for sure. So what a season he's having. Field of 64, I mentioned this earlier, but you've had a couple of different renditions out there from Baseball America, D1 Baseball, Tennessee per D1 Baseball, and their latest Field of 64 this week, the number 3 national seed hosting here in Knoxville. So we'll keep tabs on that. But about Vanderbilt, what does Vanderbilt look like and who is Vanderbilt? Well, Vanderbilt is a team that is struggling a little bit this year, and injuries have a lot to do with that. Tons of injuries, including a key bat in that order that they've been gone, that they haven't had since the 5th game of the season. Their best hitter in terms of average right now hasn't played in the last 5 games or 4 games because he got hit in the face in Jaden Davis, and obviously you hope he's okay, but his status for the weekend is up in the air if he can come back and play against Tennessee. But pitching wise, ERA team-wide is a little higher than normal at 483. They've struck out opposing batters 483 times. That's 6th best in the SEC. They've allowed the 8th most runs to score, though, at 262. All in all, very middle of the road in terms of pitching in the SEC at Vanderbilt this year. What I can tell you is Bryce Cunningham is going to start Game 1. Carter Holden is going to start Game 2. Those 2 guys, almost identical records, or stat lines rather, both 6-3 on the season. Cunningham's a 4.36 ERA. Holden is a 4.88 ERA. Both those guys are the only pitchers on staff that have pitched more than 60 innings this year. The next closest doesn't even touch 40. Only 2 pitchers to pitch over 40 innings this year is Carter Holden and Bryce Cunningham. So that's the 1-2 punch. They pitch pretty much every weekend, and who's going to start that Game 3 could be Devin Futrell, who's got a ton of SEC experience. J.D. Thompson, who missed 4 games due to that substance earlier in the year, but Grayson Carter was the opening day starter. They've got a lot of options there that they could spin to see who could start in Game 3, but injuries have been very much a part of the deal for Vanderbilt on the mound. In the lineup, Vanderbilt, they do a couple of things well, but a little bit all over the board. They've got the 6th best average in the conference at 285, which is respectable. They clobber extra base hits outside of home runs, tied for 2nd in the SEC with 104 doubles, tied for 3rd in the SEC with 10 triples, but have logged just the 2nd fewest home runs of 55 in the league this year. They've got the 5th worst slugging percentage, the 3rd worst on base percentage. They've scored the 9th most runs in the SEC. So they do a couple of things well, like doubles and triples. They got a respectable team average, but everything else is kind of towards the bottom of the pack. Mentioned Jaden Davis. We'll see if he's going to play this weekend. He did have to have surgery. And he's missed the last 4 games after being removed from the game after being hit in the face on April the 27th. We'll see about him. Jonathan Vastine, the leadoff man at shortstop, has been really good this year, hitting at a 315 clip. He's drove in 34 runs, stolen 10 bags. R.J. Austin's a really good player, 311 average, scored a team-high 42 runs, 21 steals, 48 ribbies. All those are team highs. Alan Espinal hitting a shade under 300 at 298, leads the team with 9 home runs and 36 RBI. Overall, offensive numbers are fine, but they run very well, does Vanderbilt. They've stolen 82 bases on 95 attempts. So managing the run game again this weekend is going to be really important for Cal Stark and Tennessee's pitchers. Got to manage those guys on base. But overall, I mean, Tennessee's won 7 straight SEC series. Winning on the road is never easy. But Tennessee should win this one on the road. But it's a rivalry game. You got to throw everything out the window. We know Vanderbilt right now is desperate, and we know that Vanderbilt's going to give Tennessee everything it has. So be super intrigued to see how this series works out. I'll be down there in Nashville covering it, of course, for Volquest.com. What does Luc Lipcius, former Tennessee first baseman, think about all this? We're going to get into Luke. He'll touch base on Vanderbilt. He'll get raw about what happened in 2022 with that non-home run from Jordan Beck. He'll talk about his disdain for Tim Corbin. Great stuff coming up with Luc Lipcius here in a moment as we continue on with the Porch. But couldn't do the Porch without our friends Spivey, King, and Spivey LLP. Matthew A. Spivey, J. Matt King, Richard A. Spivey. You got a problem? Let them find a solution for you. T&N Trial Lawyers. They specialize in criminal defense, family law, and personal injury, examples of which can be DUI, homicide, assault, personal injuries such as car wrecks, divorce, alimony, parental rights. Over 80 years of combined experience, Spivey King and Spivey LLP provides representation throughout the state and federal courts of Northeast Tennessee. The firm has a vast amount of trial experience. Practice has been in place for 43 years. This partnership since 2012, while also having partners who are energized for today's modern legal demands. Practicing primarily in Northeast Tennessee, the Tri-Cities of Sullivan County, as well as Hawkins County, Washington County, and surrounding areas, the firm has won multiple awards and attorneys who have been rated by super lawyers in the Mid-South with real trial experience. Whether you've been injured in a car accident, need help with a divorce, help with custody of your children, or have been accused of a crime, Spivey King and Spivey LLP is here to help you. The address is 142 Cherokee Street, Kingsport, Tennessee. Get a free consultation by picking up the phone today and calling 423-245-4185 or visit them online at Spivey King and Spivey LLP. Spivey King and Spivey LLP. You got a problem? Let them find a solution for you. T&N Trial Lawyers. All right, Luke, Tennessee baseball coming off the 7th consecutive SEC series win down in Gainesville this past weekend. Started off good. It was a doubleheader, lost the nightcap on Friday, but an 11-run 6th inning on Saturday kind of ran away with that series. Tennessee dropped a midweek before that series, and then had a dicey one a couple of nights ago. But nonetheless, the Tennessee baseball team, man, it is playing well and maybe not hitting its peak, but playing really, really well heading into the waning games in SEC play before postseason play. I feel like that's kind of where you want to be.
Yeah, no doubt. The midweek loss was weird. Maybe it's something with the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the week before throwing them off. Maybe I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but yeah, no worries. Every good team loses at least one midweek. You can't go undefeated in the midweeks. It's so weird. I was talking to my baseball buddies. It's like the bad teams win all the midweeks. It's the good ones that lose. And not to the extent that Florida's lost them, but you got to lose one. But either way, this weekend was a different Tennessee offense than we've seen. I think it was like through the 3rd or the 4th inning, we just had like 6 or 7 singles. And it's like, what is going on here? But it also proves that we got that other way to win in our back pocket that, we can just take out. If let's say the field's playing really big in Hoover, we can still just smack the ball around the field. No, we can actually produce runs. There was also that play, I think it was on Friday, the 1st and 3rd, the first time we tried something like that in a while. Luckily it worked, Ensley with a really good slide. But again, it's those double headers are so hard to win both games. Just it's something about them where you almost not expend all of your energy, but you win a game and then you have another one. It's a funky thing, but I thought we played them really well both games. And then on Sunday, of course, that was a normal Tennessee offense. And it also shows that, hey, if we need to, we can put up an 11 spot in a game. The only thing that I will say is, going back to Missouri midweek, this series, and then even this yesterday, Tuesday, the offense is kind of hitting a trough, but that what happens after a trough, you go back up. And so it's a really good time to be getting back on the upswing of that offensive, prowess that we do have. And it's really exciting. And it's fun because these last 2 weeks, Vandy's fighting for a spot to get in a regional. They got 11 SEC wins. They're kind of teetering on the edge there. And then South Carolina, we've seen has really picked it up towards the end. But it's down to the wire, and you're gonna see teams just trying their absolute hardest to show out and make that postseason run.
Yeah, who would have thought that Tennessee and Vanderbilt at this stage in the season, the regular season, the second to last week of the regular season, Tennessee would be ranked number one, which I think we could have assumed that, not assumed, but if we would have said Tennessee would be ranked number one, wouldn't shock anybody.
Exactly.
But Vanderbilt being unranked, it just kind of goes to show you what this league's all about. But more on Vanderbilt here in a moment. I do want to kind of go back to that series. It felt like, man, the hitting was a little hot and cold. And what you think about Tony V's lineup, man? Yeah, in games 1 and 2 of the series, of course, you didn't have KT in the lineup, and that changes things. You had Hunter Inslee hitting 5th, which I wasn't a huge fan of. Brad Key Lowry drew the start at DH. I'm not sure kind of what that was all about. You got Colby Backus the start on Sunday, and he gets 1 AB, and then you pinch hit for him for Robin, who really hadn't hit much of anything in the last 6 weeks. It felt like a little tinkering in games 1 and 2, and even a little bit in game 3, but that lineup in game 3, getting KT back in there, it felt more normal.
Yeah, and I mean, we texted about it. It was just like, what are we doing here? Because everyone thought Backus and maybe Bargo or whatever, but he goes Brad Key Lowry, which he's a good player, but it's not who you'd expect in that situation, and it shows. It also shows that that whoever needs to step up will step up. I know we didn't hit too well, probably because that lineup change. It's weird when you have to switch it like that. It was a drastic change, moving guys, even starters, around to where they're not normally hitting. That can kind of mess with you a little bit. So, we have something to blame the bad weekend on, whatever. but then you do see KT back in the lineup and we look like ourselves. So no biggie there. It's just one of those things. I think V is trying to push buttons to see like if certain people can do certain things. And it's kind of a testy move down here in the stretch, but V's one of those guys that is loves to test stuff.
Yeah, he is. And there was a lot of conversation about it on our website and during the game thread and everything. And, one of the things I always kind of fall back on when fans say, well, where's this guy? Where's this guy? Where's this guy? It's like, well, at this stage in the season, man, you dance with who you brought to the party. Like, I mean, Inslee's an everyday outfielder. Cal Stark is your catcher, okay? Like, those are, Billy Amick is not going to be DH, and he's your third baseman. But then you see a move like you putting Brad Key Lowry in there, and it's like, that seems to me like, and you know him much better than I do, that seems to me like Tony V is upset or frustrated with his DH options, and rightfully so. That spot in the order has really struggled the last, 4 or 5 series, and he just wanted to try something. But it is a little out of the norm to kind of try something at this stage in the season, I guess.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. With the DH spot has been struggling, not just struggling, but not putting together good ABs. It's all right if you're not getting hits, but if you're just not looking good in the box, then V will most definitely make you know it. But also, I think that move with Robin was to try to maybe get him back up. He started the season off so hot, and now we've just seen him cool off so much. And now to where he's in a pinch role, and he's not succeeding in a pinch hit role. So I think that button was just to see if we get Robin back on the tracks. But yeah, it's just one of those things where V is not afraid to say, hey, you guys are messing up, and I'm gonna show you it.
I do think, and maybe maybe it had to do with being a hair out of position or something on that throw from Amick that got away from first, and maybe Backus is a little late over there backing up first base on the air there. Maybe that had something to do with it. But striking out one time doesn't deserve to get you pulled from the game. I do think I want to get your opinion on this with the DH spot struggling, but having a healthy KT getting back in there and playing the outfield. I do think Colby Backus deserves to get some looks as the DH right now. I don't think that he DH'd in that doubleheader simply because he was the only other guy outside of Inslee that could play center field. So if you DH him, you can't put him in center field or you lose that spot. I think we should see Colby Backus a little bit more. I'm not saying he's a long-term solution, but I think he's earned it given kind of where Reese and Bargo and Cannon and Robin and all those guys are right now.
Yeah, and might as well. It's one of those things where it's not a lose-lose or not a win-win, but it just is what it is. Because you got guys that are struggling. So if they keep on struggling, then why not just put in someone else? If he struggles, it's the same thing. I compare it to like whenever I got pinch hit for and they struck out, I was like, well, shit, I could have done that. It's like if everyone's failing, it's the same. So might as well switch it up. And I know it's a weird thing to say this late in the season, but also like you look at Backus's numbers, he's slugging up there with SEMO, and he's just like he's putting together good ABs and he's looking a lot better. Early in the season, I would watch him. I was like, what is this? But then, as of late, he's really coming into his own. He's hitting balls really hard. So like I said, might as well try him out. If it doesn't work, then it hasn't been working,
And again, not to take anything away from Colby, but a lot of those slugging numbers have come against some Tuesday night competitions and all that. But again, I think he's earned that right. So we'll see if he maybe gets another look this weekend or something. The last again, they lost to Lipscomb. Lipscomb's a good team. Not necessarily this team is good. They're not as good as last year that was in the regional with you. But you lost that game to Lipscomb, and then it was a little dicey there against Queens, and Queens is not a good ball club. For everybody that's freaking out a little bit, I try to tell them, like, I don't want to say, I've said this before, but I don't really want to say that midweek baseball is not real baseball because, you got your starters in there, SEMO, Berg, Am, they're all playing, but it is a bullpen game, and it's completely different than what you would see on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So what do you attest to the struggles a little bit? Again, a huge home run from Dylan Dryland the other night to put it away, winning 6-3 over Queens, but not the smoothest ride in midweeks the last 2 weeks.
No, and I think it's just what we've seen just this past 2 weeks. The offense is in just some weird, tiny little funk. Because if it's a close midweek game, you'd almost rather it be a 10-9, a high scoring close game, because then you at least know the offense is doing what they're supposed to do. When we're not scoring until late in the game, when we're just not putting together the best ABs, it does leave a little bit of room to say like, hey, what's going on? But again, like we know this offense can hit. They're gonna ride that wave and get back up. And then especially, I think this weekend, maybe just kind of like last year, this weekend will be a really good kickstart to kind of get their drive back or whatever they've been kind of lacking over the past couple of weekends. I remember last year, that was the weekend that literally kickstarted the second half of the season for them. So hopefully we'll go into Nashville and same thing happens. But again, like you said, it is baseball. You just got to ride the wave. And these guys are just so good and all their swings play, and they've been playing really hard. And there's too much to like about them, especially with the way the pitching's been, the defense has been. Like we're going to be in games, which is all you need down the stretch.
Yeah, and again, I don't think that I would have liked to have seen Kirby and Combs pitch on Tuesday, but man, Combs comes in one of the highest leverage situations possible. And again, I know it's Queens, but man, you come into that same situation against Vanderbilt or against South Carolina or whoever. He's at least worked through that a couple of times, and Tuesday was a huge stage again. He performed well.
Yeah, pressure reps are pressure reps, no matter who they're against. It is good quality reps, and so that is one good takeaway from that game. But yeah, you would like to see a blowout going down the stretch, but I'd rather see it against Vandy, so that way we can do whatever with them.
Speaking of Vanderbilt, man, obviously it's a rivalry series. Coming off one with Florida, staying on the road, going to Vanderbilt. It's the Vandy boys, Tim Corbin. These two programs don't like each other much. And the last time Tennessee was at Vanderbilt, you were a part of that club, of course, 2022. And it was the first inning, the second batter of the game, and there was a home run that was hit, and then there was a home run that was wiped off the board. A lot of controversy there in that series. Tell me from your perspective, and of course you had a little say in that when you homered later in the game, kind of walk us through all that happened there with the Jordan Beck non-home run.
So, like, you go into Vandy and you know that Corbin is going to try to do whatever he can to get a little advantage, especially when it's against us. And so, like, there had been talks earlier in the season that the bats were juiced, that this and that, whatever. So it's like we came into that series knowing, hey, they're probably going to check the bats. And, one of those things where like you could say it all you want, but you never really think it's going to happen until it happens. And of course it happened. And, you know, that was this, we were all looking for just something to like get us going. Not that we really needed it, but it was like literally the pitcher could have looked at us wrong. I was like, all right, here we go. And so that was kind of the tone setter for the whole weekend. And then of course, you know, I hit the home run, which is really just like really cool for story wise. And I was, you know, yelling at the second base umpire, even though he had nothing to do with anything. It was just one of those things. It just added to the whole, you know, mystique and storyline of that team. But I also think it jumpstarted the weekend that led to the sweep. And it was Corbin sucks. I used to think so highly of him when I was younger, because that was, you know, when Vandy was going to World Series, it was like, these guys are the dudes. But then you play against him, you hear stories of these guys playing for him, and you're like, that place literally would stink to play at. He runs it like a, you know, a military camp, which, you know, for discipline is fine, but as far as for having fun in college, not fine. And then you see now where there's this NIL pool that evens out the playing field, because Vandy now can't just, you know, pay full ride scholarships and get all the good talent, because, you know, other SEC schools are going to pay them just as much, if not more. And so I think it's just one of those things where I'm very happy that Vandy is not that good, and that I really want to see us beat them by a lot.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That was, I mean, you guys beat everybody that year, but you guys swept number 1 Ole Miss at the time earlier in the year. Yep. And then I believe Vanderbilt was number 1 when you guys swept them on the road, correct?
I don't know about number 1. I think they were like top 5 or something. Either way, it was like a top 5 matchup. So that sweep was awesome as well. And just like for the guys that had been there for a while, I don't think we had ever won a series at Vandy over, you know, whatever the 10 years that I played there. But that was even cooler to get a sweep at Nashville.
It feels like every time these two teams square off, like there's something crazy or wacky that happens in the series. I remember Evan Russell hit the 3 home runs. Yeah. In 2021 in one of those games that you guys won. In 22, of course, what we just spoke about. Last year, you had the game that changed everything with a extra inning walk-off home run there from Griffin Merritt and all that. So I'm intrigued to see kind of what happens this weekend. I, again, say it every week. I know you don't watch every single Vanderbilt game, but it is a Vanderbilt team that's got talent, and it's not horrible, but it's a little bit more down compared to where it normally is. Kind of, what do you make about this Vanderbilt club?
Well, the first thing that I say is you watch them; they're just kind of undersized. Like everyone's the same height. Like they're all talented players, but it seems like this whole team is just a bunch of shortstops. You know, that kind of build, shortstop build. They are a really fast team. We're probably going to see them steal a lot of bags on us, but that's fine. It's not a normal Vandy team. You know, their pitchers, they do have talent again, but you know, Carter Holton's got a 4.3 ERA or whatever it is. And it's just these guys that aren't really producing. So I don't know what's going on with them. Maybe it's a team chemistry deal, because usually when you have talent and you're not producing, there's something, you know, going wrong at home. But it is a good team. It's a team that can definitely beat us if, you know, we let them. But again, the way we've been playing, it nothing to fear. And of course, I know there's going to be a little extra gusto in our dugout, just because that it's a rival and we want to win, you know, the Battle of Tennessee.
Yep, no doubt. Kind of going back to that Florida series and the doubleheader, and again, it's just such a long day. It's 18 innings. You're playing back to back. I wrote a story kind of comparing. You know, the top of the order was on fire. Top of the order in all 3 games was incredible. The bottom of the order was not, but in Game 3 it picked it up. You know, Stark mode unleashed there in the dark jerseys. He was good, and of course Hunter Ensley had the game of his life, and that was great to see. Blake Burke looks more like Blake Burke, and again, you know, baseball's baseball, man. I mean, he's on top of the world. Comes down, he's humbled against Missouri, and then last weekend he really kind of looked like himself, and of course the bat flip there when him and Simo go back to back later in the game. Good to see Blake Burke looking more like himself, because he's been one of the biggest reasons why Tennessee's been so good this year.
Yeah, and that Missouri series was weird. You know, it's not surprising, because when you lose that hitting streak, it's like, all right, there's always a chance that you're going to kind of tumble even more, which is what he did. But I wrote a note. It was on the Friday game, I think, that it was like good to see Burke swinging it well again. And it's just, like you said, he's been such an integral part of this lineup. And he's just fun to watch. That 1-2 punch of Simo and him is so great. Simo gets on and Burke drives him in. It's something that, we missed during a little bit during that Missouri series, but he's coming on strong. He's just going to be himself, which is nice. Seems like he's calmed down and back to himself, like you said.
So you play first base, so obviously it's a little bit different, but let's go across the diamond of third base defensively here. Billy made a couple of really bad errors in the Florida series, and sometimes that's baseball. It is what it is. He has made more highlight reel plays this year than errors, so I think that's important to remember here. The narrative was Clemson couldn't find anywhere to put him on defense, and he wanted to play defense, and he was given that opportunity to come here, but it's not like he couldn't, and I think he's proven that this year. But some really bad plays this past weekend against Florida. As a defender, how do you get out of your own head? Because I remember after he made some of those errors, like sharply ground ball hit, it was almost like, oh, look what I got. Like, it was like, oh, thank God I got it. Like, how do you work yourself out of the, I don't want to say yips because that's not where it is, but kind of getting yourself out of your own head?
It's so much harder, I think, to do it on defense than on offense. Just because it happens less and it almost feels like there's more eyes on you. But you got to just really rely on what you've been doing at practice. You get with E or whoever's there, and you just kind of beat the yips or whatever you want to call it out of you. And then of course, it's funny because you make like an errant throw in IO before the game and you're like, oh God, like what are we going to do? And so you field that first ground ball. If you make that first play, then it's like, okay, weight's lifted, like we're back. So if he makes that first play, we'll be fine. Even if he doesn't, I think we'll still be fine. It's funky because he was so good. Then he has the appendicitis, and then now we've seen kind of a different version of himself. I don't want to say that that's the reason that stuff's going on, but I mean, it's just weird. I think he'll be fine because, like you said, he's still a really good player, and he's proven that he is a good player. But it's all about getting that confidence back in practice, and once he makes that first play, it'll all kind of settle in.
Yeah, I mean, at least the power's still been there since he's come back from that appendectomy, but still, in the field, it's been a little bit of a ride at times. All right, out the door, and this is a very loaded question, but I thought we'd have a little fun with it. Somebody asked me on my show earlier this week, who would be the all Tony Vitello team here at Tennessee? And so, like, I know I'm just throwing this at you, but kind of off the top of your head, just kind of work the positions and kind of give me the first name that comes to mind here, okay. Because we know there could be a ton.
Oh boy. Okay, so I'm gonna be partial because I think those older teams he likes better. But Russ at catcher, me at first. It's
like, how do you leave Steve-O off? But he talks about Fergie all the time.
Well, dude, the Liam Ferg duo was just the most magical thing because it's different coming from me because I was with him in the locker room and stuff. Yeah. God, just straight I think we will go Ferg. And then I don't know, Liam and Ricky might be a tie. He really liked Ricky, and Ricky was a really good player, but then he loved Liam. And then at third, Andre, and then let's go center Gilby, right Beck, left ZD.
Howard?
No, ZD.
Okay.
Zach Daniels. Yep. And then on the bump, Chad, no doubt.
Yeah, Chad. Zach Daniels going back in the Wayback Machine there because he was done. Yeah. He was out of here. Was 21 his last year or 20?
20. He was in that 20 draft class.
Okay, 20. Yeah.
But I tell you what, ZD was his dude. Even though ZD was a soft spoken guy, but he just did everything right, and we loved him. So that's why I put him out there. You could have said Dickey, but everyone's thinking something like that. But yeah, that's my all V team. Coming from what he would say.
Tony always when he's referencing people. He even said it to us a couple of nights ago. He's like, "Yeah, I was signing an autograph. Some kid asked me who my favorite player was, and I was like, I'm never gonna say somebody on this year's team. Can't do that." So he was like, Fergie. So he always references you.
The old guys.
Yeah.
Well, it's fun. It's funny because not that these teams aren't fun, but he raised us. We were little babies that didn't know how to play baseball, and he took us to these glorious heights. So that's also why he's going to be partial to the older guys.
And I mean, not to say that. I mean, obviously this year's team, last year's team had so much talent. I mean, you guys in 22 had so much talent, and it's because of him and Elander and Q and of course Frank and all these guys, but also like you guys in 19, 20, 21. I mean, y'all laid the foundation for what like this $95 million renovation project is going to be. The new locker rooms, the weight room. I mean, it was because of you guys that everybody knows kind of what Tennessee is now.
Exactly. We had no benefits to reap from the previous teams. We grinded and grinded and grinded. And I think V just really appreciates that. Also, honorable mention, Trey Lipscomb would be up there.
Yeah. Trey's a tricky one too, because he had the 1 year and it was so good.
But so
one year, but he's also that guy that Tony references as like, if you just keep going to work, keep going to work, keep going to work.
Exactly. He's one of those, good stories where he's sits. He doesn't leave and he, explodes. So and he's just such a good guy, such a likable guy too.
Yeah, for sure. All right, out the door here. Give me your prediction on what's going to happen this weekend, Tennessee and Vanderbilt. What do you think?
Oh, well, I think Corbin's going to run out to center field and stretch like a dumbass. But other than that, I don't know. I think there's going to be some chirping. Corbin's going to do something weird. I'm going to say I think Burke's going to do well. I hope he does. KT's been swinging the bat well. I hope I see a good outing from him. I don't know. I think we're just going to play ball this weekend. It's going to be passionate, and I think we are going to win handily throughout. That's my prediction.
If you can't tell, I think you're going to figure it out that this series means something more for Tennessee, and maybe even a former first baseman, and Luc Lipcius. Luke, as always, man, appreciate it, and we'll talk again next week, getting ready for the last regular season series of the year, and then the SEC tournament.
So crazy, it's wrapping up. Can't wait.
Great stuff as always from Luc Lipcius, former Tennessee first baseman, my co-host here on the Porch. It's a Volquest Baseball podcast. Great stuff there, talking about the 2022 road trip to Vanderbilt. Again, how he doesn't like Tim Corbin. Some really good stuff. And a little bit there towards the end of his all Tony V ball club here at Tennessee. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And as always, I really, really do appreciate Luc Lipcius. It is Tennessee at Vanderbilt this weekend. Tennessee, the number one ranked team in the country, but you can throw that out the window. Vanderbilt is not ranked. You can throw that out the window. It is a rivalry series. Vanderbilt is really good at home this year, and they're going to be desperate, looking for some SEC wins, and we'll see how it all plays out. I'll have coverage for you all weekend long over at Volquest.com. You can always follow us on Twitter at Volquest_on3 and at @_Caner. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk on the Journal's Quarters this weekend. And as always, thank you to our friends at Spivey, King and Spivey, LLP, for being the presenting sponsor of The Porch, a Volquest baseball podcast.